Welcome aboard the Triple Option here on a shortened week. Monday and Tuesday, you'll see us. The rest of the days, you won't.
Oh.
Until Saturday with the pregame show, and we'll be back for that. But certainly happy to be here on, Garrett, what I can only really describe as another just insane bonkos banana week in college football. And we have run up against a hypocrisy situation.
No, not in college football.
Well, look, the SEC has teams that can beat each other and are all evenly matched, and
that's new.
That's a good thing, right?
Yeah.
That's great. That means the SEC has gotten better, correct? That's what that's supposed to mean, right? That's the narrative. That's the narrative, correct?
Right, yes.
The Big 12 has been this way for 5 years now, but that's a bad thing in this part of the country. Like, the further west you get,
right,
the worse it is. But in the East, it's fun. I mean, whatever these conferences are now, but like, you know, over here, if the conference office is in Dallas, bad. If the conference office is in Atlanta, good. So I'm very curious to see how this comes to a head, and I've seen a lot of projections, and, you know, you'll hear from Peyton Soysher later in the show with his video this week, but his projected rankings have Alabama at 12.
That's where they should be, like, or if not further back, honestly.
Okay, why is Arizona State then at 16? They have a better record. They have a chance to win. Like, they have a chance to. Now, this is all
because they started so much. They started outside of the rankings and have been trying to claw their way in. And really, they didn't make it inside the top 25, but like a couple of weeks back.
Yeah.
So that's probably plays into it. But if you're just going pound for what you're seeing, yeah, I mean, Arizona State should be at closer than that to Alabama.
Yeah. No, I look, and this is where the conflict comes in. Now, this week it ultimately doesn't matter because we're going to see rivalry week. We'll see some things happen. A&M and Texas could really shake things up because if A&M, who'd already dropped to 20th in the AP poll, Peyton's got them projected at 21st. If they go and beat Texas, and that's going to really wreck a lot of things.
Yep.
If Vanderbilt pulls off another big upset, you know that's gonna really change some things. For some reason, it's illegal for Mizzou to fall out of the rankings at all.
That is baffling. Like, they've just floated in the high 20s this whole time, and they have not made any – they haven't got any quality wins to show. Like, there's nothing there.
Well, I mean, and again, like, Texas doesn't have any quality wins.
No.
Texas has beaten everybody they played but Georgia.
Well, like, Mizzou's just keeping people afloat by sitting there.
Yeah. It's very – like, they're one of A&M's quality wins.
Yeah.
Right? After A&M – got upset by Auburn, and that was a really exciting game, I guess. I don't know. Like, are there A&M fans in the chat right now? I know how you guys feel because let's face it, for all intents and purposes, I am one of you.
Yeah, you're one of them.
The way I describe it to people is Texas A&M is my high school sweetheart. You know, always kind of carry a bit of a torch for them. But Florida State's my wife.
Right.
When it comes down to it, I'm sorry, you know, girl next door.
Had to see other people.
My ride or die is here, you know. So, grew up an A&M fan because of my family, my father, and all that. And I could just hear him, like, in my head. The other night, like, honestly, like, if there was like a thunderclap over like anywhere, like Auburn, Alabama, or College Station, Texas, it was probably whatever my dad like threw down.
Something. Yeah.
Like, you know, I always have this, and I love this. I'm trying to work it out as a bit, but like my dad was so friendly and like jovial kind of a dude. Like, I just imagine like getting to heaven. He's like, "Hey man, you got to hurry. We got a lot to do today. We're playing golf with Einstein. He loves it. Got a hell of a 3-wood he plays, you know." But like, I just imagine him like sitting around with like George Washington and What Joan of Arc and be like, hey, they got really into the Aggies, man. And just like, having a big old time. But like, I could feel it the other night of like he used to say when they would fall behind, what else is on? And then he would leave the room and walk around for a while.
I think that's a lot of A&M fans.
Yeah. So that game, 21-0. Then they almost have this wonderful, they come back and take the lead. Wonderful comeback. It was just Auburn playing with emotion. But then they lose. And here's how I can relate. I've been a Red Sox fan for a long time too, since I was a little kid. Mm-hmm. And this feels what it was like to be a Red Sox fan before 2004, where, this is and I know they can still get in the SEC title game with a win this week. But everything's in front of you. Like you can wind up with a better record than Texas if you beat them. You can win the SEC title in their first year, which they still could do. But they still have this gigantic cyst now that they've got that they can't come off.
Right.
Because it's that loss to Auburn. And so you have the best defense in the SEC, or one of them, all year long. One of the best defenses in the country all year long.
And Peyton Thorne
Thorne is Aaron Rodgers all of a sudden?
Torched them, man.
God, what is going on?
I don't know. That was my thing. It's like, what did Vegas know? Because the line all week was confusing to everybody.
Yeah.
You're looking at it like there's no way in hell this can happen. And then all of a sudden, Auburn looks like miraculous, and A&M can't stop anything. Yeah, that was embarrassing on a lot of levels. That was the most Texas A&M thing you can imagine happening there. And I don't think there was any looking past Auburn. That was just you straight up got your ass whooped.
Yeah.
Like that's all that was.
Yeah.
I don't think that the game next week with Texas played into that. That was just a bad night in Auburn, Alabama for A&M.
Yeah, it was. And they've not really ever played they had one game a couple years ago where they went in there and won. And it was like the other way around, where A&M wasn't very good and Auburn was playing well. And then they went in and pulled the rug out from under them. But Paxton makes a great point that A&M, Ole Miss, and Alabama losing, Texas is in. They're in. The most losses that they could possibly have now going into the playoffs would be 2.
Yeah.
Either losing to A&M this week or losing to Georgia again in the title game. Like, that means the most losses they can have is 2. Mm-hmm. And if one of those teams can get in with 3, which one of them at this point looks likely to do,
right? Because
God forbid we put them under the same microscope as everyone else.
Can't do that.
No, I mean, they didn't do that. Like, what would happen? What would happen to the world economy?
It would crash.
What would happen? I mean, apparently, there's a terrorist from Tuscaloosa that has all the nuclear codes to all the countries.
I wouldn't be surprised.
And will launch them if Alabama is out of the playoff. And, last year they were gifted a spot. Mm-hmm. And this year, they would be truly gifted a spot if they got in.
There's no way. There's nothing you can say about Alabama. Like, they haven't looked the same all year. Yeah, and I know they beat Georgia or whatever, but at this point, I don't even know how much weight can go into that because there's so much. All these teams are the same. There's not one elite team out there. So, all we're talking about when they beat up on each other is just which brand or logo beat on the other one. It's not about the product on the field, because they don't have the best teams over there right now. And I don't know how it's going to shake out. I don't see a way I don't think they deserve more than 3 teams in the playoff. And I know they're going to try to push for 4, but with what Alabama's done, Georgia, all them, they're so inconsistent, vulnerable. They all choke. It's just inexcusable. And if there's no way Bama should be allowed to make the college football playoff with what they've done on the field this year. I just don't see it.
If Tennessee beats Vandy, they're in. 10-2, win over Alabama. Yeah, I mean, okay, that's a good win. They beat now what is a rising Florida team, and they would beat a Vandy team that's going to be 6-6, which for Vandy is like
Remarkable.
10-2.
Yeah.
And Notre Dame's in. They're in and they're going to host. They're first of all, like even if they did lose to USC this week, I think they wind up in, but they're not going to lose to USC this week.
No, they're not.
So, Penn State's in. Penn State's in. Like
I can't wait to watch them go one and done.
Yeah. They're probably going to host,
Yeah.
So, and then Texas, like we said, is in. Georgia, I think
Georgia's going to get in.
Georgia's going to get in even if they lose to A&M. Even if they lose to A&M. Now, if they lose to Georgia Tech and then lose to A&M, then that's another thing. Like,
yeah.
I have a top 5 tomorrow where I brought up the A&M scenario. Well, I probably should do an addendum where, like, the Georgia scenario, I mean, it's not unrealistic for Georgia Tech to haul off and beat them. They've already beaten one.
Especially the way they played
team
against UMass, pushed them in the first half. Like, come on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kidding me?
Yeah. So, Miami and SMU, the winner of that's getting in, the loser's out.
Which I don't like.
I don't like it either. Like,
stupid.
Here's the thing. If you're going to, if Alabama, who's 13th in the AP, but if they're going to be 12th, if they're going to be in this, like, why should one of those teams not push them out?
Both of them need to be. I think there's no reason that Miami and SMU shouldn't be in.
Yeah.
Honestly. Because, that's just dumb. Especially if somebody's going to get screwed like that for these SEC teams. But I think I know Miami's been pushed. I know they've got a loss or whatever, but like pound for pound, this is the best season they've put together in a while. They're clearly the first or second best team in the ACC, and they're going to the championship game. Like, yeah, they deserve to be in this.
No, I'm with you. So,
and they have a star quarterback.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get it all, Garrett. I'm with you, and this is where I get mad with the committee because, and look, their job is hard. Mm-hmm. But if the Big 12 winner is 11-2, they're going to be in. But right now, they get a scenario where, the 4 highest ranked conference champions will be the Big 10 winner, the SEC winner, the ACC winner, and Boise State. So that means the Big 12's on the outside looking in as it stands right now if these rankings are the same. And I just can't put, and I get putting it there this week, and if it happens next week, it's egregious. But if we get to the Big 12 championship weekend in 2 weeks,
right,
and you have an 11-2 team sitting there or a 10-3 team, if there's a 10-3 team sitting there, and they win the conference, I mean, maybe they don't get the bye. That's fine, but they should be in the thing.
I mean,
like saying they're not one of the best conferences and leaving it out because of parity, that's, I think, where people get nervous with the Big 12. But right now, based on what the AP thinks of them and the coaches, the coaches think less of them by a couple spots than the AP does. And what the Big 12 needs is for one of these 2-loss teams, whoever's if it's Arizona State and BYU, if it's Arizona State and Iowa State, if they win this week, if they both win this week, that's who the title game is.
Right.
That's the simplest scenario. At 3:00, we will dive into all the other scenarios, of which there are legion. A ton of scenarios. Baylor and Texas Tech could wind up playing each other in the championship game in one of them.
That would take a lot.
Especially Texas Tech, whose defense gave up 48 points to the mighty Cowpokes.
That is pathetic on so many levels. So many concerns.
The most depressing season in Oklahoma State recent history, by far, could end with them going 0-9, right?
Yeah.
Losing 9 games in a row, not winning a Big 12 game. And likely will because they play Colorado.
Yeah.
Who has a lot to play for.
Yeah. Who's pissed?
Yeah. I mean, they did get their dicks knocked in the dirt.
They did.
By Kansas a little bit.
A little bit. Kansas is hot, man.
Let me tell you this, though, Kansas. I was scared for them after that dude cheap shotted Shadur. And that was a cheap shot.
That was a dirty hit.
And you know in my house where my allegiances were that day.
Yeah.
But
no, you can't have that.
Look, I know, first of all, but my thought was like, look, if you're going to do that to a guy, you better make sure he's not coming back in the game. And especially if it's that guy who really.
You're going to take it personal.
Yeah. I look at it like I love the show Cobra Kai. I love it. Mm-hmm. We've got the final episodes are coming soon. I don't know when exactly, but I finished this like next batch of the last season. And the one thing it reminds me, like the one thing I think of when I think of like Colorado is they're very much like Cobra Kai, where like you bet, like if you hit, you better not miss, because like there's gonna be another little a-hole kid that like dad left him, that John Kreese is gonna recruit, that has no problem breaking your leg, you know. Like all that, like that's just how it's going to be. Like they have just no problem with that, and I cannot not like say enough how when that happened, Amanda and I were watching the game, and I was like, "Ooh, man, that was a cheap shot." She goes, "Yeah, I mean, was it?" I was like, "Yeah, you know, real cheap shot." Like it was, the ball was long gone, went right for his legs. Like that's a cheap shot
too.
And then she's like, because he was like, again, he was a little bit shaken up, but you know, again, you're gonna try to take a guy to the game, you better like. And I'm not condoning this.
No.
At all. I'm not condoning it at all. It was a cheap shot. It was ridiculous. The fact that there was no call on it was ridiculous. Yeah. The fact that the guy wasn't ejected was ridiculous because it was absolutely a cheap shot. But I'm just saying that when you do those things, you got to make them count.
Yeah.
And you cannot, like, you know, it's like Lex Luthor and Superman. Like, we got him. No, you didn't.
No, you did not.
You didn't get him. You didn't. You might have slowed him down for a minute, but he's going to go to the Fortress of Solitude, and then he's going to come back, and then they're really in trouble. Like, that's, you know, they're going to figure out what your little, you know, plan is. And he's going to spin the earth around or whatever, and everything's going to be different. But, yeah, Kansas is really hot right now. Baylor is also, they won the game. They didn't, you know, they didn't get style points in that win over Houston.
I didn't expect it though. I felt like that game turned out.
That's how Houston makes teams play there.
Yeah, they rely on your defense, make it ugly. Right. I think they did a good job of making Sawyer Robertson super uncomfortable and forcing him into the multiple turnovers he had. I think taking away Baylor's rushing attack and making them kind of re-identify their offense on the fly a little bit was impressive by Houston. But Baylor took care of business the way they needed to, and it was cool to see them keep rolling, man. What they've been able to do in that turnaround is really impressive.
Yeah. Dustin Archambault. I was going to save it for the main show today. I've never seen a 6-5 OU storm the field. They acted like a little brother in a long-time rivalry that finally won in a decade. Sooner fans, LOL. Look, I give them credit, and you'll see it today, like on the top 5. Gaylord Family Stadium showed up, but, yeah, shouldn't have. Like, Oklahoma doesn't rush the field.
That kind of goes
I
back into the trend.
don't care how crappy the year has been. Oklahoma doesn't rush the field.
No.
Blue Bloods don't rush the field.
We're at a different time, man. Like, I'm with you. Like, that was up there. Like, at first I didn't have a problem with it, but the more I thought about it was like, okay, you're an established brand who's supposed to be here. Yeah, like, act like you own it. And here's another thing with this that I think the Oklahoma fans kind of missed the delivery. I heard a lot of SEC. Like, bro, you're in the SEC, so that doesn't count anymore as saying SEC when you beat an SEC team.
Yeah, they're new to all this being mediocre.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, like, look, and if you like, it's like they accepted the mediocrity as opposed to say like, look, eventually this leg's gonna heal. Like that's, you know, like this is gonna heal. That's where, yeah, you're Oklahoma. You have like the second most banners or third most.
They're up there.
They're up there. You're up there. Okay, Barry Switzer, Bob Stoops. Like, you guys have the coach before Barry Switzer, Bud Wilkinson. Like, you guys have had elite coaches. You've had Heisman. Like, you could have a guy lose a Heisman Trophy and like, just give him one of the others.
You have more than
Yeah, I mean, so your history in Alabama, like of any school, your history and Alabama history are as close as anybody can be to Alabama. So my attitude as a fan at Oklahoma would have been, and I know that the students of this era don't get it, be like, yeah, son, even when we're down, you're at Gaylord Family Stadium.
Yeah.
You're in Norman, Oklahoma. Don't bring that Tuscaloosa crap up into here. Like,
I think it's also funny because like this is a divide. Like traditionally, Alabama doesn't travel. Now you see them travel into these environments they're not used to, and it's a little humbling experience for them.
Well, I mean, that's the thing is like, so Alabama can go into Starkville and be intimidating.
Right.
They can go into College Station and be intimidating, although they've lost they've lost there. But they can go in there and be intimidating. I don't think they're really all that intimidating in Tennessee anymore. I think that's been clipped.
The past couple of years.
The last couple of years that's been clipped. They can go into places and be intimidating. The thing is, and this is where Oklahoma missed, like nobody intimidates Oklahoma at home. Like the fans who have been there, like the longtime fans, no, they're not intimidated. Like you should go. Like none of you will get to do this, but go. Like maybe one day I'll get to go back and I'll set up a camera from over the coach's shoulder.
Right.
When they lose a game at home. And I'll tell this story. So Baylor beat Oklahoma there in 14. Yeah, 14. And beat him really bad. Really, really bad. And I went to Smokey and I said, hey, listen, small little area here for us. Would you mind if he's like, no, I know what you want to do.
Right.
Because I love Angry Bob Stoops.
Oh, yeah.
So I went in because I wanted to watch Bob Stoops and like explain like how does Baylor come in here, not win the game, like winning games is like that's going to happen from time to time, but absolutely dismantle you. Like I wanted to hear those things. And the media there, and I should have known it because after the RG3 game, they asked a similar question where it's like, what's going on? We're getting beat. That's what happened in the fourth quarter. We're getting beat. It's a good team. You guys won the Heisman Trophy. What are you talking about? And then he was like, guys, they won the Big 12 the last 2 years. Had a Heisman Trophy the year before that. I mean, what do you want? I mean, you think this team's just making things up as they go along? I mean, that's a good team. It's going to win the Big 12 again. Like he couldn't believe that the media
weren't paying attention.
Yeah. But there was a lot of media there that had just become accustomed to of like, well, they win here.
Right.
There's no excuse for not winning here. How can anybody be better when they come in here? And so that sentiment still exists. It's just this year, and I guess a little bit last year, even though they went 9-3 last year.
Yeah.
Even a little bit last year was maybe shaken a little bit because they're not.
But also
they're not King Dingling right now. But
I also think like how much of that and the storm in the field in that situation was. How often has Oklahoma had big brands? Like, all right, for instance, the Big 12 doesn't have a brand, right? Like Oklahoma, Texas were their brands for so long. They always play Texas in a mutual field. How often did they have a big brand go into Norman where they were able to get a win to have that? Like that, I'm kind of like trying to see through here and figure things out. Like maybe that was it. Like you have Alabama, this big brand, the Mecca that's been running the league for the past 20 years. Like maybe that's kind of it. But outside of that, I still can't think of why you would do it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but I mean, you can't like Oklahoma doesn't, I'm telling you, and look, I'm in your corner here, Oklahoma. Like I get the enthusiasm for that and beating Alabama, but you're Oklahoma. You'll storm the field.
No.
You just go, okay, yeah. We're new in your league. I get it. It's your league. I get it. But you're 0-1 here
Yep.
as conference foes. And just know that when you come back around in like 4 years, we feel like you're going to be 0-2. That's how we feel. We don't know what's going to happen, but we feel that that's going to be the case. But I don't know, like just yeah. So Cam is bragging that half of Bob Stoops' losses were to Texas Tech, and that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. They were. But again, Oklahoma should never storm the field. Ever, ever, ever.
No.
I didn't like it when FSU did. I get it. Baylor should storm the field.
Mm-hmm.
Teams without multiple national championships and Heisman trophies.
Have at it.
Have at it. If you have done this many, many times, to me, don't. And look, I just did a story on KWTX about storming the field. I'm not going to be the old curmudgeon about it, but I just think that, like, I appreciate the super sarcasm and pettiness in the, like, oh, no, it wasn't worth doing it.
Yeah.
It was nice. This is lovely, but we've had better meals, you know.
Like I know it was, and we'll probably get into this at some point, but like Arizona State and them storming the field, and that made sense in that moment, the biggest game and all of that. That was a shit show at the end. But
it was absolutely. Oh man. Okay. Well, I want to talk about that game and that game specifically when we come back. But yeah, I mean, let's not pretend, right? That there's not different rules. I just think that's how I would like it. But I understand this is a generational thing. People see things online and like, oh, I want to storm the field.
Right.
All right, go ahead and do it. You know. Again, you'll know when you're older that it's.
But my thing is like, I don't want to be stuck out there. Like it's stuck at like midfield and have to pee or something. Like, like I always think of I'm just not doing it.
No, I think like the biggest insult is like, I don't think of you at all. Mm-hmm. Like, oh no, I just don't think about you at all.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing. Like, okay, yes, we won. I'm very excited about this, but
on to the next.
I'm gonna go home and pour myself a nice, expensive scotch and celebrate. Am I gonna rip it up like this is the first time anything good's ever happened to me? No. It's not VE day. Like I'm just gonna go and I'm gonna relax. We're not making out in Times Square. Mm-hmm. No, it's fine. So.